7 p.m. council meeting. It's good to see everyone. We hope to see you in reality sometime. It would be nice. I'll call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Today's meeting is being held as a virtual meeting due to the declared emergency. In order to keep everyone safe, we're taking this measure to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Although this is a virtual meeting, we'll attempt to record, stream live, and publish in accordance with Council's electronic recording of meeting policy. Today's meeting may be streamed live as well as recorded and published on the Southwest Middlesex website. There's some additional information there that Council can read regarding protocol. Number 2 on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Is there any councillor with a pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? Hearing or seeing none, we'll move on to item number 3 on the agenda. Additions to the agenda. Are there any? Hearing or seeing none.
Martin has his hand up.
No, Martin does.
I'm going to have to change my view here, Jill. I'm going to have to go to another gallery view. Here, I got it now. Okay, I got it now. Martin, yes, I see your hand now. Martin, I didn't have it on gallery view. Martin, what edition would you like?
I have, Mayor Allen, I have 2 notice of motions that I would like to present.
Okay, Martin, what we'll do, if you want to make a note of it, Krista has a notice of motion under number 9 on the agenda. She's on that agenda, so you'll follow Krista on that. All right.
Yes.
Any other additions or changes? Martin, I'll put you under number 9. Number 9 on the agenda, notice of motion, okay? I don't see one's hand up. In addition to Martin's request, would someone entertain a motion that the agenda as with Martin's notice of motion under number 9 be accepted?
I'll move.
Would someone entertain that motion? Thank you, Councillor Crothers. Can I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Delegations and presentations. Jill, I have none with my records. You can confirm that?
Correct.
Good, thank you very much. We'll move on to number 5. Consent agenda 5-1 vouchers of $841,465.22. I want to thank Council again for your calls and inquiries. It's large, but there's over $500,000 in gravel in there, so that's where a lot of that comes from. Southwest Middlesex Council minutes of May 27th. 5-3 is the facilities and recreation report. 5-4 is notification of non-agricultural source material.
Excuse me, Ellen.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to look up here. Yep. Yep. Mike and Councillor Cowell. Krista, I'll take you first. Mike, you'll follow. Yes.
Mike can go first. He had his hand up first.
Okay. Yep. Mike, did you have something you wanted to pull out of that, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yes,
what number? Like
5.3, the facilities and recreation report. I had a few questions on.
Okay. That's good. And we like questions. Okay. And I don't think I missed Krista. We'll certainly get to you, Councillor Cowell.
I just have questions about the rec report. So I'll go after
Rec
Mike.
reports 5-3 as well, eh? Okay.
We don't
Good.
have to
We'll
pull it
make
out.
sure,
I can just ask questions.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do that right now. Mike, go ahead. And Steve is available.
Thank
I
you,
don't
Mayor
see him on
Mayhew.
the screen, but
Okay, thank you, Mayor Mayhew.
go
I
ahead.
just wondered on the banner program, how long until staff are trained on the use of the scissor lift?
Through you, Mayor Mayhew, to Councillor Schuldeis. Nothing has been finalized yet for timing. Now that some of the restrictions are being lifted, I can reach back out to the training companies and see if they're ready and able to safely provide training, and whether, even if they can do the training by Zoom or whatever like this. But the last time I spoke with them, that wasn't really feasible yet for the different training companies. But I would think by now they need to get back in business and make some money, and we want to get that training under our belt. So I'll be able to update council on that shortly.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Had one
Thank you,
further
Steve.
question.
Yes, go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I just wondered, when will council be deciding about opening the pool?
Through you, Mayor Mayhew. Yeah, there's lots to consider there. I'm happy to speak to that some tonight if council wishes, to bring you up to speed on matters. There's an awful lot of factors. The one thing as well is we are having the Recreation Committee is going to meet tomorrow afternoon to discuss this matter and other recreation related things in the face of COVID. So I can send that information out to all of council for anyone who wishes to attend. We're going to do that by Zoom at 1 o'clock tomorrow. But yeah, there's lots of factors. We've been in constant communications with the other municipalities about their plans for their pools and splash pads. We have been in direct contact with the Middlesex London Health Unit. The Life Saving Society has put out a 70-page document with their recommendations on how to safely open up pools and splash pads. The health unit has confirmed at this point that they're not going to be releasing any other information, that the Life Saving Society guidelines should be used as a reference, is what they're backing. I know that, so for Middlesex County, there's besides ourselves, there's 3 other municipalities with pools. At this point, it's the opinion of the recreation managers or directors for 2 of those pools that they still do not plan to open their pool this year. The third one, Strathroy Caradoc, just issued an update on their website today saying that, that they are not proceeding as per usual with their pool, that they're allowing for full refunds and anyone that's signed up for swim lessons. But Rob Lilborn there has said, that they're now reconsidering. They're wanting to make sure if they do reopen, indeed, that they can do so in the safest manner possible to make sure that they're not exposing themselves to risk, or their staff or the swimmers, which would be likewise for us. So yeah, we're looking into all those different things, and I'm not sure how council would want to proceed from here. I'm willing to give all information at any time you wish. I can, if anybody wants to attend that meeting tomorrow, like I've got like about 5 pages of information here that I could share tonight, or I can share that tomorrow during the Recreation Committee meeting.
Yeah. Well, I think Steve, props. If we want to pursue that talk, we can do under maybe staff reports and get through some of the other things. Councillor Cowell may have some questions related to that too. And Councillor Cowell, you go ahead, ask your question directly to Stephen.
So I think this is his staff report. So if we do have questions, I would assume this would be the appropriate time to ask about it.
Okay.
So my question is this a decision that council needs to make, or is this a decision that the rec department makes? And that's my only concern about, I mean, obviously we shouldn't make a decision before we have an opportunity to meet as a rec committee, but I'm just concerned if it holds off for another 2 weeks. I suppose the 24th would give more than enough time to have the information and to come back, because the 24th is our next meeting, correct?
Yes, that is the next council meeting is, yeah. And Steve, you can certainly answer that question, but
Yeah,
committees do make recommendations to council.
If I could, I'd like to defer that question to Jill.
Yeah. I was just going to advise council, so if we proceed with passing the bylaw related to the planning public meeting, we would hope to just deal with planning matters that evening, because it's we've got 3 applications that we've already sent notice out for, And I really don't know how long it's going to take. So we were planning on not having additional staff reports, just try and deal with the planning matters for that first public meeting, where we allow people to call in and video conference in, etc.
And a couple of factors, just for council's awareness, is whenever if we do decide to open the pool, we then need about 2 weeks between that decision and the pool being open. Unless we decide to start doing a bunch of labor and work in case we open the pool, we have to slowly drain it, clean it, and then slowly fill it, with it being a concrete pool, to make sure we don't blow out the bottom with the pressure variance. So that takes time. We have to order in thousands of dollars worth of chemicals. The health unit requests 2 weeks notice to come and do an inspection, which is required before we can open the pool. So there's a lot of factors there. And I'm not sure as well, technically, like with it being an operational decision, exactly where the decision lies. And I see Jill's got her hand up on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Jill.
Oh, thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So just on that point, yes, I think it's not been council that has said that the pool can't be open. It's been the provincial government's emergency orders. So that's the only reason that we haven't had the plan to proceed as we normally would. So we're following the direction of the provincial government, which at this point says, if you can do it and safely do so under these criteria, then you should open your pool. And so I think the operational decisions, I would expect if Steve comes back and says it's not feasible, he'd advise council of that. Otherwise, we would be proceeding just operationally. That's how we would manage it, because that's what we do.
Mhm. Okay, Krista, do you have a second question there, Councillor Cowell, at all, or?
I do have
okay?
a follow-up, but I would like to go after everyone else has had a chance to speak.
Okay, then we won't forget you there. Councillor Vink, go ahead. Councillor Vink, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, well, this is a serious decision, and any serious decision should be done by council. So I am completely in favor that council has the final word on whether the pool gets opened up or not. We've already heard from Steve that 2 other municipalities are not planning on opening. And so I definitely feel that we should have the final word on whether it opens up or not.
Okay.
If I could respond to that, Your Worship.
Yes, go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, so a couple of factors. If we were, just so council knows where I'm at this point with what I've learned and heard, is if we were to reopen, it would not be business as usual at the pool. I cannot see us providing swimming lessons. And Strathroy Caradoc, if they reopen, they have the same thoughts, that it would just be public swims throughout the day. You would perhaps have an hour public swim and then close for half an hour to clean everything, and then let in another batch of people for a public swim. The Life Saving Society recommends that pools that do reopen only allow 25% of their bather load to use the pool. So the bather load for a public pool is based on the size of the pool and the surrounding area. And our maximum bather load for our pool is 175 people normally. So the Life Saving Society recommends limiting it to 25%, which is 43 people. And that has to also include the lifeguards. So it would be only approximately 40 swimmers at any time, maximum, that we should be allowing in the pool. Swim lessons just are not safe. Like the pool still has to be operated with the minimum 2-meter physical distancing. So swim lessons are very hands-on, and the instructors are right there, especially with the younger kids, holding the kids and helping the kids. So you can't be 2 meters away and hold a kid. So, that makes swimming lessons not only, it exposes the instructors and the kids to risk, for one thing. So those are the sorts of things we're looking at for a pool reopening. It would be, and I think the nice thing, if we were to, and it would be a shortened schedule perhaps, where we have 4 or 5 public swims every single day, so that when it is hot days, the community still has an opportunity to come and jump in the pool and cool off. And likewise, what the Life Saving Society and Health Unit are recommending with the splash pad is that it needs to be staffed and fenced. And that's one really good thing for our splash pad. We're the only municipality that has a fenced in splash pad. So that was great foresight by Mr. Gerald Raycraft to fence our splash pad. So having it fenced and having one of our lifeguards there to make sure to limit how many people can get in there at a time. And there I would envision when there's a lineup, you have 15 or 20 minutes to enjoy the splash pad. Then it's your time to leave and time for the next group to come in. All the groups would have to wait in line 2 meters apart, like people waiting outside of grocery stores or Costco. So those are the sorts of things we're looking at. For pool access, they recommend that you have to have a separate entrance and exit so people aren't crossing each other that way. So what I would recommend there is all patrons would enter the pool on the gate on the far outside of the building, the exterior, and leave the pool deck from the other outside gate. So people are not going through the pool house, not letting people change at the pool. Come in your swimsuit, leave in your swimsuit. Because for change rooms, you have to have a minimum of 5 square meters per person. So we could have about 2 people in a change room. So that just doesn't work. So it'd be safer for people to come and go with their swimsuits on, and only letting them into the pool building from the pool side into the building when they have to use the washroom, but also strongly recommending people try and, take their bathroom breaks before they come and after they leave, but that's not always controllable, especially with children and especially once they hit the water. So those are some of the general thoughts and procedures that myself and the other communities are thinking about.
We've got some hands up. Thank you, Stephen, very much. Councillor McGill, I noticed your hand up, followed by Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Go ahead, Mark.
Well, I just thought we have to think of the staff too and how much time they need to be notified. I would imagine they're wondering what's going to happen with their, summer employment. Sorry about that. Yeah, they'll be wondering what's going on with their summer employment. So I think we would have to make the decision probably sooner than later.
Yeah. And to speak to that, if I may, Mayor Mayhew, I have reached out and we've checked in with all the lifeguards just today to update them on the thought process and what we're going through. And most of them are still available at this point. There's a couple that aren't. But quite frankly, if we are not doing swim lessons, then we won't need the full complement of lifeguards. So I think we would still be adequately staffed at this point. And as well, they would have a little bit of extra hours available in monitoring the splash pad if we have to have one person dedicated there. So a very good point. And another point with the lifeguards, and one of the benefits if we do open the pool to whatever capacity is safe to do so, is giving those lifeguards hours and work. We have a great aquatics team. We always have. They're very committed on their own personal time and their own personal expense. They have to take courses and get certifications and get recertified in the hopes that they can get a job. So, we then hire these certified individuals, and the risk of not opening a pool and then trying to go back out to market next year and think there's still going to be a crop of trained lifeguards looking for work. There's a chance that some of them, once they don't work at a pool for a summer, they're off in other directions and they're not going to keep their certifications up. So that's a consideration as well, I believe.
Thank you, Stephen, again. And Deputy Mayor Wilkins, go ahead. And Councillor Kell, you put your hand up when you're ready there. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Am I cutting in and out? Some of you are with me, and I'm not sure whether it's this headset. It's okay? Okay. Okay, good. So just a few comments. First of all, we do have amazing staff, Steve, which you just said. We've had great staff over the years. I would certainly hate to lose them. I suspect if we didn't open our pool this year, that they would go look for employment somewhere else. So we would run the risk of not having them come back next year. And I'm just curious whether council does want the pool open. I know myself, I certainly think we owe it to the community to investigate the possibility of that. As Steve said, that one of the requirements is fenced in splash pad. We're ahead of the game there. We have hired our lifeguards already. Some of the pools that have opted out of opening haven't hired any lifeguards this year. So I'm just wondering if council doesn't feel comfortable enough with Steve having the ability to determine if the pool can open safely or not, because we're kind of running out of time here. Staff are doing the best they can to kind of figure this out. We don't have another meeting until the 24th of June, which Jill said is just planning. And I don't know about the rest of you, but if this pool is going to open, I'd like to see it open by the end of the month at least. And if Steve's saying he needs at least 2 weeks, unless council wants a special meeting, I don't think we've got a lot of choice here. And I certainly support Steve making that decision. Just my comment. Thank you, Mayor Mayhew.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Cowell, go ahead.
So I'm glad I waited till after everyone spoke, because I'm in agreement with Deputy Mayor Wilkins in the fact that if we were to choose not to open, then I think that's a council decision. But moving forward, as Jill said, as an operational sort of thing, if this is something that Steve and the rec department feel that they can do. The other thing to consider is in his report, he spoke to how the splash pad would have additional costs for running it if we ran it separate from the pool because of the water usage. And I think that, you know, while we are probably going to occur more costs as a result of potentially not running swimming lessons, the offset might be seen in the fact that we are opening the pool and can recycle that water from our splash pad. So there's that benefit there too, because I think we can all agree perhaps the splash pad should open, but it's a nice balance because the big kids can use the pool, the little kids could use the splash pad sort of thing, and we still have both. So I'm of the opinion, you know, that our rec department should move forward like they're going to open it. And if something comes up, I mean, like all things in COVID, you know, what we decide today might not be the same decision in a month from now, but we shouldn't tie our hands by saying, no, let's just close. I think staff has done a good job of making an effort to move forward. And as long as we don't tie their hands by requiring them to come back to us, I hope they could be open maybe for Canada Day.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kell. I think there, just from the chair, I think there's been so many disappointments these young kids have had this year. Their graduations have been canceled. A lot of their camp trips have been canceled. And I hate to put one more disappointment into the community and the young children. Many find the pool just an excellent venue and the camaraderie. Though they have to distance, there's still a social gathering, so to speak, from a distance, and it would be a tough call, I think, to close it. Steve, if you have a vision of this, do you envision a shorter season than usual, like a later opening and possibly earlier closing, or just a later opening and go to your usual time?
Through you, Mayor Mayhew. I envision it'll just be shorter days. I think I'd still like to do the full season, with the exception normally, if it hadn't been for the pandemic, we would normally be opening the pool 6 days from now. Next Tuesday was when we would be set to open, and that's due to the Swim to Survive program with the grade 3 classes in 4 area schools. That was canceled early on with COVID, so we no longer had to open the pool anyways for next Tuesday. So then really the next big deadline normally is the first Monday after school closes, is normally when our swim lessons begin. Again, I don't see swim lessons being feasible right now. Like Councillor Cowell said, things can change throughout the season. So maybe by the 3rd or 4th session of swim lessons, maybe we can offer one-on-one swim lessons or something. I can't predict that yet, but that might be feasible. So I would just foresee that we open the pool by Canada Day would be nice. And that kind of when real summer hits, when the e-schooling, the website schooling is over, have the pool open with a shortened daily schedule, maybe starting at 10 o'clock until 6 o'clock. I'm not sure. I'm gonna get input from the rec committee and others before finalizing that and from council. But then run the whole season. That way the splash pad's still available all season as well, since it runs off the pool. And on that note, I've got more input. I've been working closely with Stephen Gerber about the options to plumb the splash pad to run from the pool or to run independently from the pool, right from town water. And that would cost in total about $4,500. And they could get that done in about a week's time. So whether we do that this year or not, if not, I'm going to put it in the budget considerations for next year, because a real factor there is the way it's currently set up is when we've had some really hot days already, and normally normally the splash pad cannot run till the pool's open middle of June. If we get it plumbed so that we can toggle between either option, we could turn the splash pad on for every May 2-4 weekend or whenever the temperature warrants turning it on. And then once the pool is operating, we can flip it over and run it with the pool system, saving that water expense. But then again, when we close the pool on Labor Day or before Labor Day, switch it back over to town water, because there are hot days right through into October, so that, you know, kids in the community can continue to enjoy the splash pad when the weather warrants doing so. So that's a factor.
Mark, I believe I saw your hand up, Councillor McGill.
Would the mayor accept a motion that we open the pool and the splash pad, providing all provincial standards can be met?
Yeah, it was on the tip of my tongue to suggest to council. Mark, if you'd like to make that a motion, I'll ask for a seconder. Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Any further discussion? And this,
Just a comment.
we accept, yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead.
So does that mean we are still going to get a report to council, or doesn't?
I think the motion was that we open the pool under the accepted principles that have been laid down by the authorities, and it's Jill can reread that motion if you'd like, but it is somewhat fluid. I think what it is, Martin, the motion barrels down that as a council, we're accepting in principle to open the pool under the guidelines as set down by the Canadian Red Cross. And there would be some fluidity there that we entrust our recreation manager to fine tune the openings and closings as he would see fit. But we endorse in principle the opening of the pool. Is that the intent of your motion, Mark?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yes, Steve, go ahead, Mr. McDonald.
Yes, and in response to Councillor Vink as well, with that permission, as long as I can ensure that we can do so safely and in accordance with guidelines, if council wishes, I'm happy for the June 24th council meeting just to have an information report, because I know it's a full schedule, but it's an information report with all the details on how exactly we are planning to do it at that point, so that you do have a formal report in front of you for your review that can then be pulled out for discussion if need be. But if it's self-explanatory and wonderful, then you can just read and enjoy it and be fully up to speed on the plan.
Good. Thank you, Stephen. Councillor Kell, I saw your hand.
I was just concerned that we're tying up operational aspects of this, but if staff is comfortable with this, then I'm in support. Obviously, I'm in support of the pool being open. It was my understanding based on operational that we didn't necessarily need this motion. But if this is what it takes, then I'm full support of it. I just think it's a bit redundant. And I'm super pumped that the pool is going to be open, and I'm glad you want to make a motion, because I'm like, no, they have to do it. But anywho.
Last call for questions. I'll call the motion. All in favor of the motion?
Awesome.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you, council.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for that impromptu report there. We thank you very much for that. Continuing on with the consent agenda, 5.4, the NASM approval. 5.5, St. Clair Region Conservation Authority. 5.6, the Glencoe Agricultural Society and their request for a Canadian Blood Services drive. 5.7, notice of motion from the town of Oakville regarding patios. And 5.8, 2020 student celebration, graduating class regarding the festive lights the week of June 22nd. May I have a motion that the council receive the consent agenda? Thank you, Councillor Cowell, a seconder for that. Councillor Bartlett. Discussion. The motion will be called. All in favor? Carried. Item number 6 on your agenda, Council, Committee of Adjustment, there is none. Item number 7 on your agenda, public meetings, there are none. Staff reports, 8A, fire, there are none. And section B, administration, removal of holding zone symbol on James Street, Melbourne, Vibrant Properties. Jill, I'll hand that over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. So Stephanie is the one that prepared this report, and she is able to join us this evening. So I'll turn it over to her.
All right, great. Yeah, just saw you. Come on there, Steph.
Yeah. So
Go ahead, Steph.
So as council will recall, the lands are subject to a plan of subdivision for the creation of 9 residential building lots. And the plan of subdivision was draft plan approved in January 2014 and received final approval in April 2020. The subject lands contain a holding provision that is contingent upon the owners completing a subdivision agreement. And the subdivision agreement has been completed and registered on title. And so staff are of the opinion that the holding provision can be lifted. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. Council, any questions to Stephanie on the removal of that holding symbol? If there are none, would someone entertain a motion that it be accepted that the amending bylaw to remove the holding symbol as it applies to the lands known legally as Range 1, North Part 2, Melbourne, be granted? Someone that would like to entertain that motion? Councillor McGill, and seconded by Councillor Vink. Any questions to Stephanie? All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you, Council.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good. Take care. The second item under administration reports is the disposition of property on an unopened road allowance and a shared boundary between Brook Alvinston. Jill, I'll let you give the background on this.
Sure, I'll try to be brief. So the adjacent property owners, they believed they owned the entire property. They didn't realize there was an unopened road allowance there, and they logged a portion of their property, and they logged the municipality's property, as well as the municipality of Brook Alvinston's property, in that it was the unopened road allowance. So once they realized the issue, they requested the option to pursue purchasing the property. Brook Alvinston has already moved ahead with this, and I understand there was a small amount paid in light of the logging that took place there over to Brook Alvinston, and that is what we requested as well. I just recommended that, given this was trees coming down, nice option for us would be to use those funds that they're willing to provide to us and use them for the Arboretum, so that people in the community can enjoy them, and should be able to get us a couple of a few large mature trees, and definitely can be used to help us move forward on the plan that has been designed for those two properties. So essentially what the report is requesting is that council consider the disposition of the property, and the sale and disposition of policy of council requires that you declare that the property is surplus to the municipal needs, and then authorize the mayor and the clerk to enter into an agreement.
Thank you, Jill. And Jill, there is some revenue coming our way for $2,500 on that as well, I understand. Yeah, okay, there's some questions. Mark, I saw your hand up, I believe. Was it Mark? Yeah.
Well, I guess, I'm not sure I did have my hand up, but I did have a question. So just I just want to make sure I understand this motion. So then this would just be authorizing the mayor and the CAO to talk to the adjacent property owner and arrive at a price for the adjacent property owner to purchase this land. Is that the case?
Not quite. It's a little step ahead of that. So it's declaring that the property is surplus to our needs, and that because of the sale and disposition of land policy, when it's that kind of an unopened road allowance, a small parcel, we don't have to go through an appraisal or anything like that. We can just work with the adjacent landowner, because who else you wouldn't sell it to anyone else. And so we've already come to an agreement on an administrative level that I was supportive of bringing to council. So my recommendation is council consider declaring the property surplus, and then if that's the case, authorize the mayor and myself to enter into an agreement to transfer ownership of that property to the adjacent property owner. And for the amount, what I understand is that they received about $5,000 is what they have told me for the logged portion of the property that was ours and Brooke Alvinston's. So hence why that's the amount.
But you mean there'd be no further compensation for the land itself?
No,
to the municipality?
That's correct.
Yes, Councillor Vink, go ahead. Mark, if you have a second question, you think about it. Go ahead, Councillor Vink.
Thank you, Mayor Allen. Yes, I recall Councillor McCollum brought this up initially, and I don't dispute the $5,000, but typically when we give boundary adjustments, the new owners pay for the legal costs anyway, and they receive $5,000 through their own voices. It seems like we're not treating our ratepayers fairly with only getting $2,500 back. So even if we got, it should be more like 4,000, because they also are getting land as well. When you look at the diagram, they will be able to move that windrow and work on both sides of the farm, makes it a lot easier to work. And so I think the ratepayers are getting a little short change on $2,500.
Just to back up the $5,000 worth of logs, half of those were Brooke Alvinston. They weren't all ours, so that's where the $2,500 comes from. And the marketability of the land is in question. What is the land worth? What's the market out there? That has to be kept into consideration. And secondly, I think council should realize too that this has been not a short process. There's been approximately, and Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's been almost a duration of 2 years' time during the story, has there not?
That's correct.
Okay.
And
so this didn't happen overnight. And Jill, expand on that if you would.
Yep, sure. So I think if I understood Councillor Vink's comments, so the folks that are the property owners who are adjacent to this little strip of an unopened road allowance. They have already paid for the legal fees, so they're the ones that have got they will do the survey. They've paid the legal costs. I've been in touch with their lawyer, so it isn't Southwest Middlesex residents paying for the legal fees or the cost of the survey to be prepared. Just if that's, I understood that was a concern. So there's, so that's already not something that's being covered by Southwest Middlesex. And additionally, if you look at the map that's attached to the report, this can't be a boundary road any longer because the neighboring municipality has already sold and transferred their portion of the unopened road allowance to the property owners. So it's not serving any purpose for Southwest Middlesex because we can't open a road. It wouldn't be wide enough because we would have only been a partial owner of that road had it existed.
Any other questions, council? There is a recommendation before you. If someone feels comfortable entertaining the motion, Councillor Cal, do I see your hand up? Thank you. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Bartlett, thank you. Council, we'll open it up for questions if there's some concern. Okay, I don't see any. I'll call the question. Oh, I'm sorry, Mark, did I jump the gun on your question?
I just wondered how much land are we talking about here? Like, is it maybe an acre or something? Or maybe
Well, I
less?
saw
I don't know.
the maps. I don't know if you got that there, Jill. If I look for it, I'll lose my screen.
It doesn't say on the map how much it is. It says the total property size is 225 acres that the property owner owns.
I don't have the acreage amount with me, but it's not very large.
The width of a road would it be 33,
half.
66 feet, maybe?
Yeah, so it'd be 33 feet or half times
Yeah.
however many feet long it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 30 and a half is, it'd be the 33 of us would be our apportionment. I'll call, any other questions? Last call for questions. All in favor of the recommendation that's been brought forth? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It carried. Thank you, council. Jill, thank you very much for that report. Continuing on with staff reports, building, there is none. Finance, we have adjustment of property taxes. Kristen, I'll hand it over to you. You can walk council through this.
The adjustment of property taxes, sorry, is another 357 adjustment that MPAC provided us with. So basically a homeowner has submitted an application, a 357 application to MPAC saying that there has been a change of use that'll affect the taxes on a portion of their land. So MPAC does the evaluation and then gives us the recommendation. So this is in keeping with MPAC's recommendation.
Thank you. Any questions to Kristen? Failing which, if someone would make a
I'll move
motion
it.
to
So
the
moved.
recommendation. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, a seconder for that.
I'll second.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Bartlett. Questions again? All in favor? Motion's carried. And Kristen, you can walk us into the insurance renewal with Frank Cowan, if you would.
I will. So each June, I know it's after June 1st. It's most of council will remember, or will remember that usually this is right up to the gun at last minute. So COVID's definitely played a part in having this renewed in a timely manner, but we do have existing insurance, so don't fret there. So I'm proposing that we renew with Frank Cowan for the next year, June 1st to May 31st, 2021, in the amount of $231,326. That is over approximately $7,000 over what I had budgeted for. And in the insurance industry is seeing quite a bit of increases right now. Our broker, Keith Crawford, assured me that a lot of municipalities are seeing an upwards of an 18% increase. So ours at 9.7 seems excessive, but that also includes cost of living. So it's closer to a 5% increase in addition to cost of living. But it's not as a result of use or claims or anything like that. It's purely market based right now. That's what the whole market is seeing this, he assures me.
Thank you, Kristen. Council, any questions to direct towards Kristen? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew.
Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Perfect. Okay. Have we been offered, or has there been any inquiry about a reduction in premiums due to our facilities being closed?
I have not. And I'm trying to think of that, like the insurance is built around different specific policies. So we would still want to have liability insurance in the facilities in case somebody, trips and falls or something like that, even, in the immediate vicinity of the facility. And we would want to continue to have fire and those types of insurance. So I'm trying to think of what specific insurance coverage would be reduced by just not having it available to the public, but I can definitely pose the question.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Any other questions? Kristen, what is our deductible? Kristen, I don't want you to work too hard at finding that. You remember offhand what it might be, our deductible?
I do. It's different for different situations. Environmental might be one, vehicle might be one, but in general, it's about $5,000.
Okay. And the property value insured, do you know the amount of the property value insured, just as a benchmark?
Millions?
Yeah, millions.
I
Okay.
don't know off the top of my head.
Okay, no problem. Council, the recommendation is before you. Last call for questions. Yes, Mark, go ahead. Mark?
How often do we put this out to other companies for quotes? And also, when will we get our liability coverage back on the 2 landfill sites? Because we've spent a lot of money there bringing it back into compliance. I know there's more to be done yet, but I mean, we're doing the monitoring now. Shouldn't they be considering covering us again?
So we have, we switched to Frank Cowan just prior to the landfill's closing because we didn't have environmental liability insurance on them. So we went to Frank Cowan because they would provide it. They don't, obviously, most insurance companies won't insure pre-existing conditions. So if there were a claim to arise because of something that they could prove happened, prior to them taking us on, then they might not insure that. But in general, we do have all environmental insurance on everywhere, on all of our properties, including the landfills.
And If I could have one more question, cybersecurity insurance, is that in that policy or will that be an additional appendage down the road?
That it's coming. We have signed it. We've had to go back and forth with IT a little bit. So I filled out all the initial applications and consulted IT. We sent it in to Keith Crawford, who got all the quotes. We came back and matched it to the one we felt covered us best and fit into the budget that we had set for it. Gave it back to Keith, and they had additional questions that we then sent to IT, and so it's back in their hands. So again, he assures me that everything's just a bit more delayed with COVID. There's not quite the response time that they're used to, but he doesn't see any reason why we shouldn't be covered for the amount that we were planning on at the rate that we were budgeted for.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Cowell, I see your hand.
I just wanted to remind everyone that when we received the information about insurance for this thing that you just mentioned, that they often got hit because they would read our information. So just that we could be putting ourselves at risk by continuing to discuss it.
Yeah. Call the question. No more questions? No more hands? I'll call the question in favor of the recommendation. In favor, a motion. Is there someone to make the motion? I'm sorry. Yep. Moved by Bartlett, seconded by Councillor Scholdice. It's been well talked about. All in favor? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? Carried. And E under staff reports. So we're back to Steve, Facilities and Recreation, the lease agreement. People will be familiar with that property. That is the OPP station on Water Street. Steve, would you like to speak to this?
Yes, certainly, through you, Mayor Mayhew. The report's pretty self-explanatory. There's no changes to the request from the last time we extended this lease 5 years ago. All the similar terms and recommending the similar approach to increasing or adjusting their lease rate as previous times. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council, any questions to Steve? Well, the recommendation is $14 per square foot, $29,980 per annum, 5-year lease. Would someone entertain a motion that the report be accepted?
I'll move the motion.
I'll second
Thank
it.
you very much, Councillor Bartlett, and seconded by Deputy Mayor Wilkins. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Steve. Item number 2 under your report, Appin Church parking. Steve, you walk us through this.
Certainly, through you, Your Worship. So this report addresses concerns and challenges for the Appin Presbyterian Church for limited nearby parking for their congregation to get safely to church. So when analyzing this and when actually taking physical measurements of distances from point A to B, the two most effective ways, and really the only 2 recommendations in my report that provide better nearby parking options for anyone with accessibility concerns, are to proceed with the signage that is the recommendation in the report for senior parking spots. The church had thought that 3 or 4 such spots would be ideal. And then, that's why I would recommend that as a first measure. Once churches can reconvene and get back to full capacity, which isn't the case yet, but to give that an attempt and see how that goes for the church. It's a very simple fix and very cost-effective fix. And then if that does not resolve or adequately take care of their situation, then my next recommendation would be a parking lot installed on the front lawn of the church on their property. As that, you can't get closer than that for parking, that's for sure. And with the measurements there, it would fit 5 or 6 handicap accessible parking spots, which would be more than enough in when combined with the existing roadside parking.
Okay.
Then there's some
Thank
other
you,
options
Stephen.
in the report as well. Sorry, Your Worship, but the other options are not providing nearby parking. So I think these are really the only two that are worthy of consideration. And then on a secondary note, as for potentially improving parking behind the Eckford Community Center for people that use that facility, that is something that I'll put in the 2021 budget considerations, as opposed to the thought of taking or rerouting money that was earmarked for McMaster streetlights this year to something that wasn't planned for this year. Thank you.
Thank you again, Stephen. Council, any questions to be directed towards Stephen? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I'm just wondering why this report was added to the agenda late, given that it's been under discussion since February.
Through you, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Stephen.
Yep. Yeah, the report was in essence done and ready to come to council right before the pandemic hit. And then we delayed it, hoping and thinking that we might be able to have an actual face-to-face meeting and allow the congregation to attend again for this discussion. But now that, we're 3 months into this, we decided not to wait any longer for that. And I shared the link for this meeting tonight with the church and whatnot, and I've had some good conversations with Mr. Jim May, who's been the representative for the church dealing with me. And the reason, so it was on the agenda and done until we realized a few things that I needed to double check with regards to the option we're going with, that being the temporary signage. If the temporary signage wants to, if eventually we want that temporary signage to become more permanent with channel posts or whatnot, then we realized, we need to be checking, and I had not, with OPP, with the county, with bylaw enforcement. So we looked into that a bit further before submitting the report, just to dot our I's and cross our T's.
Thank you.
And I had communicated that all to the church over the last week, that because initially my plan was to send them the link to the meeting when it goes out to the public that would also include my report. And then I had to update them and say, sorry, the report's not there yet. This is why, just finalizing some things. So they were understanding and very good to deal with.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yep.
Last call for questions. Yes, go ahead, Councillor Kell.
I appreciated all the different options that were provided for sidewalks, and I think you've provided that option, but that if we don't vote on any of those, we aren't doing them, or is that to come back? Because I thought some of them were good in general for the community of Appin. When we consider, a sidewalk going up alongside the side of the building, I know there can be benefits to that for, the Girl Guides or other people that use the facility, and whatnot. And for me, it was the idea that, sidewalks in front of the parking, and I can totally appreciate where you're coming from when you say that the parking lot may be improved in the next budget, and so maybe that'll be something that's dealt with then. But for myself, when we do drop off with the kids at the in the evenings, and I'm sure even with SMAC, having the opportunity to walk along the front of where you park, where the the cement markers are, that makes it safer for everyone if they get out of their car and they head to the front of their car rather than walking behind the cars, just because at nighttime, and I understand that we're supposed to be getting some lighting, so that's a benefit too, but I'm just wondering, because part of it was the discussion of the 25,000, and I'm just wondering if this report means if we just put the signs up that we're not considering that money at all, and what that means.
Go ahead, Stephen. Yeah.
Okay, through you, Your Worship. Unless council directs otherwise, my thoughts on Councillor Cowell's question were that at this point we would address the the parking for the Presbyterian Church and not dive into the McMaster streetlight money if we didn't have to this year to take care of providing parking improvements for the church. And then I can certainly include the sidewalk options and whatnot for the 2021 budget considerations.
So we're still considering these things, but we're putting it for the 2021 budget so that we don't have to necessarily impact any of our current funding, right? Is that I just wanted to make sure that this isn't something that's going to just get forgotten.
Correct. I see Jill has her hand up.
Yep, that's correct. Yes, Jill, go ahead.
Yep.
Jill, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Through you to the council member, I think the other point that's really important as part of Steve's report is that there are some really significant operational issues with the sidewalks. So just to be clear, if it's a sidewalk for the building, then the facilities and recreation staff clear it off prior to the rental user coming in, but we don't just clean off the sidewalks in advance around the building in advance of Sunday Mass. And Public Works are the ones that do the sidewalk clearing for the public sidewalks, and they do the roadways first. So if it was ever sorry, and it looks like I've lost Councillor Vink from the meeting and he's calling. So just a moment.
Well, if that's the case, I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't, and I can appreciate having the operational things, and that's what's nice about having them be included in the budget, is we get to see and hear all of the different perspectives about that. So I just wanted to make sure that that's something that isn't going to be forgotten, and I totally respect that perspective, and that's part of the reason why we get these reports, so that we can understand that operational side of things. So my question has been answered, so thank you for that very much, Jill and Steve.
Yeah. And thank you, Steve. I know you're focusing on the church parking, but that work was not done in vain, because we're always looking for ways to improve our community, and Appin has a busy little culture around that hall. And if we can put some additional investment in there next year or then the year following, it'll be positive. We can I think Jill is tied up with Martin trying to solve his technical issues. We are, we have done that. There is a mover or a seconder for that. Yes, Councillor Cal.
Unmute.
Sorry, thank you. I couldn't remember if we had a mover and seconder, so I was willing to move it.
Yeah.
Never mind
I
then.
think Councillor Bartlett, Councillor Bartlett, did you move that, or? I'm not sure. I'll ask for a mover in a second.
Okay.
A mover for the recommendation of the temporaries, the signage, the senior signage going up. As Steve's recommendation, I'll take a move. If someone would move that motion.
I will move it.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett, and seconded by Councillor Cowell. Last call for discussion. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Guessing we lost Councillor Vink due to the weather.
Oh,
my-
yeah.
my
It could be
hydro
said.
just
It looks
flickered
really
here.
bad out here. Yeah, we've got some trees that are bending over at about 20 degrees.
So
Here.
that was Councillor Vink that called, so he's trying to reconnect. So that's why I took
Yeah.
that call. If you can tell me
Okay.
who just moved and seconded that? Councillor
Yes,
Bartlett was in
Councillor
there.
Bartlett moved the motion. It was seconded by Councillor Cowell,
Thank you.
and it was carried.
Thank you.
And Stephen, thanks very much for providing those reports.
You're welcome, sir.
We're on to Public Works. Pleased to have Greg with us. Municipal engineering standards. Greg, would you like to walk us through this?
I can do that. Thank you, Mayor Allen. I think the report's pretty self-explanatory. Engineering standards really kind of guide the design and installation and maintenance of municipal infrastructure. And currently we don't have any in place in our municipality. We have been using other municipality standards, but that does present a problem because they're not really custom to our situation. So one of the things that I'm asking council to do tonight is try to capitalize on some of the work that Spree Engineering has done for other municipalities that surround us to get this done cheaper and to get this done as soon as possible. Spree has prepared many engineering design standards for the past 20 years and just most recently prepared standards for Warwick, Strathroy, Caradoc, and Zora. And for the price that they've given me between $10,000 to $12,000 and the quickness of getting this done, I'm asking council to approve. The cost estimate is provided by Spreets for the development of municipal engineering standards, and that council waive the purchasing process to get this work done. I don't know if anybody got any questions, but certainly can try to answer those for you.
Yes, thank you, Greg. Councillor Cal, go ahead.
I don't have questions. I read it and I'm super excited about it. And so I'd like to move it.
I'll second it.
Fine. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Wilkins. Council discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. Just for clarification, why are we not going out to tender for this?
Through you, Mayor Allen, just the creation of just.
Yes.
Sorry, can I jump in?
Go
here?
ahead.
Yeah,
yep,
through you,
sure
Mayor Allen, to Councillor Scholdice. It'll cost us this much money just to come up with the actual document that we have to send out to engineering companies to get the submissions back in. So really what we're trying to do, which we do in a lot of cases, specifically, to try to coordinate some of this activity between municipalities to get the best price for the residents of Southwest. Some of the other costs that I've got are over $50,000 just to get the standards done for us. So I felt this was such a good deal that I would bring it to council and see what they thought. So I do have a recommendation on the table. So.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions? I can justify going outside our procurement policy here. It's very competitive. I like the comparables, Greg, that they used. They were similar, with Warwick, Strathroy. It is very competitive. There is some urgency to it as well. And I can see your enthusiasm to bringing it to council. Last call for questions. Will someone entertain a motion to accept the report?
We already did.
Did it already have? Yes, we have. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, opposed? Okay, noted. Okay, motion's carried. Greg, thank you very much for that. I appreciate your work on that.
Thank you.
9A, notice of motion, Councillor Cowell.
Jill has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jill. Yes, go ahead.
That's all right. So I just wanted to let council know that Councillor Bink called and his internet is out and he's not going to call in. He's just going to remain out of the meeting for now.
Okay. All right.
I've seen a few people from just outside of Glencoe post that there are funnel clouds and touchdowns. So just keep an eye out.
I just thought that 5 minutes ago that there has to be something touching down somewhere. My trees were bent over and the sky was the weirdest color and the wind is really howling. So I'm not surprised, Kristen.
I've seen 2 videos on Facebook so far of that they just took of a tornado touching down.
Yeah, maybe you've seen my facial expression for the last 10, 15 minutes. It's been really, really hairy here.
Yeah, it's a good thing we passed the insurance, eh?
We were safe.
Councillor Cal, we're on notices of motion. Would you give us the pleasure of introducing yours?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that Southwest Middlesex become a Vision Zero, that we investigate becoming a Vision Zero community. So this motion is requesting that staff bring forward a report before October. So the idea being that we had a child die at an intersection, and unfortunately there's nothing we can do to control that intersection, but perhaps we could do something to control the safety, further control the safety of our own intersections. And so that was my hope, to have this before November so that we can say that in the year since her passing, this is what we've done to make the roads in Southwest Middlesex safer. And I've talked about Vision Zero in the past, and in that motion that I've made, again, this is to bring a report back. I've had the opportunity to speak with staff. I understand that COVID has meant that we are business as necessary, but at some point we do have to move forward. So staff felt that that was a time frame that was more than feasible for them. So I wanted to reach out to them to make sure that I was respecting their workloads. So yes, that's the notice is there. Ultimately, the idea is to make decisions about our roads and consider making them as safe as possible.
Thank you, Krista. It's
If
your
I need
intent to move that tonight?
Yes.
You'll move that motion. Council, I'll ask for a seconder and then we'll have discussion.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Discussion, Council? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Crothers.
Just what type of actions are you anticipating? Signage, more crossing guards, what you'd have to have some kind of concrete actions, or it'd be just mostly just symbolic.
So what the idea behind Vision Zero is that when you make a decision about a road, you take into consideration all of the people who use the road. So it's not necessarily saying that we are going to be putting in crossing guards or things like that. But the idea is that when we build a road, or when we, for example, like in Appin, when we made the decision not to allow parking on both sides of the road, what we're doing is we're actively making a decision when we have to make decisions about roads to consider all different aspects. So right now, I'm not sure if that means putting up additional signage, but things like having those highway signs that provide speed, or maybe it means, and the idea behind this is, I understand that perhaps our roads specifically aren't the ones that have most of these fatal accidents, or we would have put more safety measures into the roads. But the hope would be Middlesex Center is already a Vision Zero community. And the hope is that if we become a Vision Zero community and everybody in Middlesex County becomes a Vision Zero community, it makes it that much easier to have our county roads be Vision Zero roads. And that's where the impact will really be seen. It's not so much about Southwest Middlesex, because we usually do what needs to be done anyways. It's more so an effort to say, hey, county, we're gonna, it's the long game. We've seen time and time again the struggle that we've had when trying to ask for additional safety measures. And if they have a Vision Zero approach, then it might be easier to get those safety measures, or it should be easier to get those safety measures. So it's sort of that stepping stone. We do a lot of these things, but it's that stepping stone into try and get the county to do them as well. And then the report will come back, and that's what I'm asking for, is a report that will explain to us what the impacts are in Southwest Middlesex. So Greg might say there is no impact, or Greg might say these are some of the things we need to consider going forward. So my hope is to have a little bit more clarity about what that would mean for our own Public Works and Roads Department.
Okay, thanks. I think we've got the perspective. Okay, I'll call the question as it's been seconded by Deputy Mayor. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? And carried. Thank you very much, Krista. Jill, are there any other notices of motion?
So I'm
None have been submitted. Did Martin submit any notice of motion, or was it going to be given verbally?
So I understood at the beginning of the meeting, and I have to admit, I had a bit of feedback loop going on, but I understood that he requested the opportunity to put forward notices of motion.
Yes, yeah, verbally, yeah, but he hasn't submitted it in writing yet, is my question.
No, he has not.
Okay.
He,
To describe, okay. Nope, that's fine. Yeah.
so
Okay.
if you, I can advise what it is he has described to me that the notices of motion will be about.
If council wished to discuss it, I hate to discuss it when he's not present or can't hear. It would seem somewhat unfair. And Martin will have that opportunity to present that notice of motion at a future meeting, unless there's some urgency to this. Do you want to, council, would you like to be apprised of it, or would you wish Martin to speak for himself? What's your wish? Yes, go ahead. Councillor Cal.
I would like to see it come up on the agenda so that we have time to contemplate it, similar to how other notice of motions are provided.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. Okay. Any other comment? It's unfortunate that Martin left it. I know that was not his own choice. It just were circumstances, and I know he was looking forward to presenting an argument. Councillor Scholdice?
I just
Go
wasn't
ahead.
quite, I wasn't
Scholdice.
quite sure, Mayor Mayhew, are we at councillor comments, inquiries, or we're not there yet?
Not yet.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to number 10, correspondence and petitions. I see none. Unfinished business, agenda item number 11. There has been none documented. Item number 12, new business. There has been none documented. County council and conference updates. Mike, I'm going to let you jump in here. If you have some comments
Sure.
you'd like to make, I'd like to put them under number 13. I'll let you go ahead before I do. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Mayhew. I just wanted to mention to staff that I've been contacted about a street light at the end of South Street not working properly for some time now. That's South Street in Glencoe. It's the end street light. And I also had a question for Greg. Is he still there?
Yep. Yep.
Go
Greg,
ahead.
are you still with us?
I'm here.
You might be. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Scholdice has a question for you, Greg. Go ahead, Councillor Scholdice.
Thank you again, Mayor Mayhew. Is the work on River Road complete?
Through you, Mayor Allen, yes, as far as I know, it is complete.
I would encourage all members of council to take a drive down it at their earliest convenience.
Okay. Are there some shortcomings in the road, according to your opinion, or?
I believe the final grading isn't correct.
Okay. Okay. We'll.
Okay, so.
But I would
Mayor
encourage
Allen,
everybody to go and look at it themselves.
Okay, so if that's the issue, I'd kind of like to know if that's the issue, because I'll have them look into it, so.
Yeah.
If you just go drive the road.
It's not like I'm holding back on anything. If there is an issue, I will talk to the engineer and get it resolved.
Sure, okay. Have you driven the road since it's been complete?
No, I got pictures of it today.
Okay, I would suggest you drive it.
I would
So-
suggest
Okay,
you
the point
approach
is,
the east
if
end.
there is shortcomings, we want to get them resolved, and Greg will, has an interest in that, and I'm sure it'll be looked into, and we won't let that leave our radar, Councillor Scholdice, and Greg, I'm sure will look after it in his usual professional manner.
Mayor Mayhew? If I
Yes,
could?
go ahead, Jill. Yeah.
Sure. So I would just, through you, ask any council member, if you've got someone who has raised a concern, the fastest way to deal with it is for you to either let us know about the issue or ask the resident to contact us directly. So a street light being out for some time, the fastest way to get that rectified is to contact the office. So we're quite happy to take that on. That is absolutely the type of thing we respond to on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, instead of saving it up for the council meeting, it's probably faster and speedier service if you just direct them our way. And again, I would suggest that if you've got concerns about something that's happening, then by all means, give us a call. No need to wait for the council meeting to bring it up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In terms of efficiency, I endorse what Jill said, and Greg will hear this as well. I'm in touch with administration almost on a daily basis with concerns from citizens, and I can say that they're generally addressed almost instantaneously. That as soon as I call, contact is made, investigation begins, and a resolution is almost always found. So by all means, don't hesitate to contact administration. Any other comments from councilors? With regards to county council, a couple of things developed on Tuesday, just a couple of things that I think would be of interest to council. Middlesex County, of course, uses web services to design, develop, and deliver important information and services to our residents. And they have county IT undertook a cooperative purchasing arrangement, which included participation of the county and local municipalities. They examined 7 people who administer, create, and maintain websites. And they chose a company by the name of Digital Echidna, ECHIDNA. They were the ones that were awarded the contract. And they have a complex agreement with them to look after the county's needs and to share that availability to the municipalities within Middlesex County. And what it does, it's leveraging the economies of scale, so to speak, that the more work these people have, the more cost effective the price is. Morgan Calvert initiated the project, and it was voted upon by county council on Tuesday. Jill, you had some background in that and in discussions, early discussions. Your interest in website development is keen, and I'll open it up for your interpretation.
Sure. So this is, as council will recall, you approved the website development for Southwest Middlesex for this year. And this is how we are hoping to move forward with it, is working with the county IT. They had put out the RFP. It allows the local municipalities to join on if they choose to. And I think the benefit is that we'd be working with a company that is already working with the county, and we don't have to go out for an RFP on our own. And county IT then isn't having to support software for website development that's outside of what it is that they're already doing. So that's where you do get some of those efficiencies as well. And anytime they do that kind of a joint agreement, like with the RFPs that they put out for the modernization projects, they do allow for some of the local members to participate in the evaluation of the RFP, of the proposals for the RFP. And so that's always helpful. And I'm looking forward to getting this moved along. I've asked them for us to be first on the list. And I know I've already had conversations with both Sheila McCann and Kara talking about the types of things we want to look for and helping to communicate our message out to the citizens and people who might be interested in visiting or investing in Southwest Middlesex and the types of things we want on our website. So we're already making progress on that front and looking forward to it.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
As Jill says, we're well positioned to take advantage of this, and our timing's right with our strategic plans in place, and there's cost efficiencies and time efficiencies involved in this too, perhaps. Thank you, Jill. Just another thing, Kristen is still with us, probably. She gave her report on insurance. Just for council's information, the policy insurance on the county is $761,000 plus, and the cyber insurance will be on top of that. So we're looking at $780,000 policy in insurance. They have $25,000 deductible, and their property values insured are $58.5 million. I just thought that might be of interest to council. But insurance, no matter whether you're a municipality or a county, it's a high ticket item. Any other reports? Yes, go ahead, Councillor Crothers.
Yes, Mayor Mayhew. Something that's been coming up for a long time, maybe it should come up for discussion, is parking on the main street of Glencoe between Symes and McCrae Street. I think as the mayor knows, this has been going on for years. There's tenants. A lot of people park there. They park there for the day. Some are parking overnight. Right now, at this point in time with the COVID, the street isn't particularly crowded at all times, of course, but it will happen. It's happened before. And I've had been contacted numerous times about vehicles being parked, sometimes left all day, in cases left day and night, almost virtually 24 hours. And I, through conversations, have suggested perhaps entertain, for instance, say a 2-hour parking maximum on the main street at any given time to try to control this. There was just some tenants that actually they have moved their vehicles that was reported. They were parked there virtually almost 24/7 on the main street. So I think that it's something we should discuss. That street does get busy and hopefully will again. And I'm not entertaining a notice of motion right now, but I'm just wondering what the proper procedure would be. But I think it should be discussed. And as I say, it's been ongoing for a long time. Maybe it's time to do something about it. Thank you.
There was extensive involvement in that problem, as Jill knows. Jill and I worked on that. And communicated with some of the individuals involved. What we found, if we have timed parking in, it's extremely expensive as an entity for the municipality. The wheels have to be chalked on the pavement, the time written down. They have to go back 2 hours later and check the chalk lines again. And it can really add up substantially to have a bylaw enforcement officer monitor that parking situation. There's a couple of avenues that we could take on that. Certainly you're privy to do whatever you wish in terms of a notice of motion, but even talking to someone like the CCC, that somehow they could put communications out to people who are employed in stores and their employees particularly. We have a great municipal parking lot across from the municipal building, and if all people that work downtown would use something like that, there'd be more parking spots on Main Street. And as our economy opens, we want to make sure that there is parking available for customers. It's a marketing tool that is rather in short supply, I know, on Main Street at times, but we'll take that to heart. And I know both you and I attend those CCC meetings, and we'll make sure I bring it up there as well to see what ideas they may have. And you can always discuss it with Jill as well for the direction you wish to take. Anything else, council? You see any other hands? We can move on.
Hello?
And, yes, go ahead, Mark. Go
Um,
ahead, Mark.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted if Jill could talk to us a little bit more about the reopening of the municipal office. And I know we got an email about it this week, but I think we've done a good job so far. And sounds like we're gonna have the phones answered. I'm not sure whether all the time or just more promptly, and just what we're doing there with regards to the municipal office at this time.
Sure.
Go ahead, Jill.
Sure. So thank you for the question. So this week we have had staff in the office and answering the phones directly instead of having it go to voicemail. And so what we had been doing is having the phones picked up. We did have staff in the office. We've had staff in the office every workday since the emergency was first in place, but just very few people, mostly because there are just a few things that require people to be in the office to do. And some of our applications that we use for running our business are on our server, and it just takes a lot longer for a remote connection to deal with those than it does if you're directly connected to the server. So that's why things like the work order module, it's a web-based platform that could be a speedier thing to deal with because you're not hosting it on your server. So that's just some of the technology sides of why we've had people in the office. Then again, our phone system, it is something we want to replace this year. We wanted to replace it last year. And the solution that we've been working on the county with to get a fiber connection so we can do some of that voice over internet and tag on to a larger system perhaps means that we need the fiber to the building. So that's taken a little time. It is here now. It's just they're not able to splice the cable to allow for the connection. That's the company, not us. So given that, and given that there is a little bit more, certainly we're in the second phase as a region, a reopening at a provincial level. We wanted to make sure we were getting ready and transitioning to be a little more open to the public in that we are able to respond as quickly as possible to the issue. There's also a piece of it of just getting people comfortable working back in the office with one another and making sure that we're dealing with all the health and safety concerns. So you'll recall that I shared the standard operating procedures that we put in place for dealing with COVID specifically. That includes a daily self-assessment. And I mentioned this to the mayor. If he's going to be coming in the office and he's had the opportunity to pop in a few times, it'd be great if he can fill one of those out too. And that gives us the option to just, if there is an issue, we have a record of who else was in the building that day, so that if someone did develop it, it's a lot easier for the health unit to trace back as to who they need to get in touch with. So we put a lot of those procedures in place. We took them through the Health and Safety Committee to make sure that they were satisfied, or if they had any concerns, they could deal with those, or we could work through them, because a lot of this is going to be a trust-based approach in making sure that we are addressing the concerns of staff and protecting them while also trying to deliver the services of the municipality. And I do think we've done a great job in delivering the services. As one of the council members said, it isn't quite business as usual, it's business as necessary, and has been, but we have really pretty much been responding with almost every aspect of our business other than having people walk in the front door. There are just 2 times when people come in to deal with things with us, and they both have to do with water. So one's to get a key for bulk water, and the other is to fill up the card for bulk water. So that is what it is. That's the system we've got in place. It's not one that's just something we want to change on the fly necessarily, but we have been responding to those requests. I know a couple of you have gotten the calls yourself, so you've directed them our way, and we've responded pretty quickly to those. I think we've managed to meet all of the requests out in the public, but I think it is helpful too in being able to answer the phone right off the bat. I know that what the health unit said on Tuesday was that this is a bit of a nuanced approach. While we're opening things up, they are still recommending that you keep your bubble as small as possible. So if in your normal life, your interactions might be with 100 people over the course of the day, they're asking that you still continue to maintain your bubble to what it has been over the past little while, unless it's absolutely necessary. So that's the message they shared. So we want to continue to provide the services, but we also try and responsibly follow the direction of the health unit as well. I'm also going to be on a meeting with the local CAOs tomorrow and the county CAO. Be interesting to see where things are headed. I know that each of them have been following a similar sort of approach of some of them have never had staff in the office. Some of them have had a little bit of staff in the office. Some of them have had staff in the office the whole time and just not been open to the public because they have so few staff. So there's a bit of a, and one municipality, because they have a Service Ontario kiosk in their building, they have done a staggered approach where they've got the public able to walk in to deal with a few things. But again, they're still testing that out, and it'll be good to hear their feedback tomorrow as well. So I think it's, yeah, I think it's something that we need a little bit of flexibility with, and you know, there's a chance that we are, you know, going to find ourselves in a situation where we're back to closing things down a little bit more if there's increases in cases, but we'll have to see.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Yeah, just further to that check-in, I've asked that those forms be put on my desk, and I'll fill them out as I come in regularly. And it's nice to have a human voice on the phone. Jill and I have talked about that. Mark, I too have had people call and say they have had difficulty getting through, but we've got that. I think Jill's evolution into more normalcy has got that covered, and we're very pleased with it. And I've been somewhat convinced about the need of a new phone system, Jill, over the last little while. I think you've won me over on that. But thank you very much for that report. Okay, we're going to move the closed session to the back so that we can continue on with from 14, we're going to go to 16. The bylaws that we have discussed, the holding position in Melbourne, the Planning Act bylaw, the leasing arrangement on Water Street, and the bylaw regarding the unopened road allowance, and the confirming bylaw. Would someone wish to move those?
Just
yeah.
If I can pop in.
Go ahead, Jill. Yes.
So Mayor Mayhew, you and I had a quick discussion following a change that County Council made with respect to their adoption of minutes. Yeah. So did you want to make that suggestion?
Yeah, that's true. Rather than have the minutes, you'll be familiar with the term a recess for a minute break. And County Council abandoned that approach on Tuesday. And it was ironic because Jill mentioned to me either yesterday or this morning that it is of some concern to her. And I mentioned that County Council had the very same concern. So we would think it's more effective and smoother to run the meeting if the minutes, instead of being delivered at the meeting, at the end of the meeting, are on the agenda of the next meeting for approval. And the benefit of that, it gives you time to go over them to assess what was talked about, what was accomplished. And we would like that one bylaw amended, Jill, to reflect that change that would assist at both administration, and I think it would be very positive to council. Jill, I'll let you pick up that conversation
Sure.
and close it off.
So what the proposal in terms of the process for that public meeting currently includes, and this is really in order to make sure that we're capturing any contentious potential for people to say, but I didn't know what happened or what was going on. So legal counsel had suggested including a break to allow the clerk to write the minutes and then come back to council, and council could then look at the minutes that of the meeting that had just happened and approve the minutes and then post them on the website after the meeting. So that certainly does take time. It's really, in my opinion, kind of unnecessary. But we wanted to make sure we had a proposal in place for council because we want to make sure we're moving forward with these planning public meetings. So really, the request is that council approve the process, but just tweak it so that you don't have the minutes presented, prepared, presented, approved, and posted. So it's essentially tweaking sections I and J.
Yeah. So that would be the bylaw, the second bylaw on your agenda, council. So the discussion is that the bylaws receive their readings, but we want council to be aware that the minutes will be offered at the following meeting. Does any council wish to discuss that or have any opinion on it? Seeing none, if someone would like to give first, second, and third and final readings to the bylaw 1 through 5.
And is that
Thank you, Councillor.
Is that with the
change?
change?
Change to number 2, with
Okay.
the change on number 2, Doug, about the minutes being provided at the following meeting.
Yes.
The
yeah.
minutes of the
Right.
current meeting being available at the following meeting.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. And I will need a seconder for that motion. I'll call for a seconder for the bylaws to be adopted.
second it,
Thank you,
Alan.
Councillor Shouldice. Thank you, Councillor Shouldice. Last call for discussion. All in favor? Motion motion carried. Okay, opposed? Okay, got it. I'll have to call that vote again. I seem to have a delayed response to my computer. All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, noted. Motion's
Mike.
carried, Jill.
You have to do that verbally because people's screens are frozen and it's impossible to tell who voted how.
Might be, yeah. Could I call, let's do it again. All opposed. Okay. Got it. Motion's carried. Okay. We have that. Then we will go to Jill, I believe we are, before we adjourn, we're into committee of the whole and camera. Is that correct?
I think you just have future meetings to put forward and
Yeah,
then
these
a motion
meetings
to go
are
into
noted
closed
there,
session.
June 24th. And council, just a reminder, on that June 24th meeting, I believe there's 5 planning issues that'll be brought before us. So we would hope that that meeting be reserved for planning. We're a little behind in that. We want to get those projects underway. June 8th meeting and the June 22nd meeting. are scheduled, and check your calendars. And Deputy Mayor Wilkins, could I hand the gavel over to you?
Oh,
I have a
so-
question.
Oh, yes, we
Um,
do. Yeah, I'm sorry, missed it. Yeah.
It's not really that important. I'm trying to find the telephone number for the emergency roadside crew. There's a stop sign out at Pratt Siding and Concession, and I just can't find that number right now.
Okay. We can
second.
we can get it after the meeting, Jill, if you can get it, or we can advise Greg and he'll look after it. I've got it in my contacts if you.
Oh, I found it.
You need
Never
it?
mind. I found it. Thank you.
Okay.
So if
All
I,
right.
if I could, once you have the motion to go into closed session, could you just take a moment so that I can make sure we're not streaming any longer?
Sure, you bet we will. So, Deputy Mayor Wilkins, I'll hand the gavel over to you, and we'll give a little pause just for Jill to get
Sorry,
ready
did you?
there.
We need a
What's-
motion to go in
Yeah.
camera,
Okay,
Mayor
motion
Mayhew.
to go on camera. Yes, so moved. Councillor Schuldeis, thank you. Seconder, Councillor McGill, got it. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Mary Gay.